afternoon. I'll call to order the September 9th meeting of the Missoula Parking Commission. Before we begin roll call, Jodi, will you explain or introduce what's going on with our live stream?
Yes, thank you. I apologize for the delay in the start of this meeting. We are currently experiencing technical difficulties that don't allow us to stream the meeting through the city website. People can still watch the meeting through MCAT or join the meeting through Teams to watch the meeting live. The actual recorded video of the meeting will be posted to the city website by the end of the day.
Thank you. Let's begin with the roll call vote. I'm Joe Easton, Parking Commission. Tiffany?
Tiffany Brander, Parking Commission. Tiffany Brander, Parking Commission Board Member.
J.R. Casillas, Board Member. Mike Steinberg, Board Member.
Peter Walker Kelleher, Board Member.
And I am Jodi Pilgrim, Director of the Parking Commission.
Thank you. We have approval of our most recent meeting, July 8th. Open to a motion to approve our July 8th meeting minutes.
I will move to approve our July 8th meeting minutes.
So moved.
I will second.
And second by Peter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any adjustments to the agenda? Now's the time for our public comment on any item that is not on our agenda. Anybody here with us today would like to speak on an item that's not on the agenda today? Do we have any communications or presentations? We're skipping our financial statement today. Brenda's out, so we're moving into our director's report. Jodi.
Thank you, Joe. I'm going to share my screen here. We will just run through this director's report quick. So first I have the Bank Street construction update. We are moving forward with construction. We are ahead of schedule and within budget, which is very exciting. We have approved to date $9,157 of our contingency, but there have been no contractual changes to the amount of the construction. What we have learned this week is that we will have some additional costs associated with some concrete cracks and spalling repairs that need to be done prior to installation of the traffic bearing membrane. But we also learned that we will have savings for the masonry work. So these totals, we don't have the totals finalized yet, but we expect the savings to offset the additional cost, minimizing the need to draw more of those contingency funds. This is a schematic of the top of the Bank Street parking structure, and it shows some of the details about repair work that's been done in the last week, primarily pouring concrete back in those strips that you see in green. So there were some drain repairs that needed to be done in those areas. The drain repairs were completed and concrete has been poured back into those strips. And we also have had the lighting fixtures all around the Bank Street structure replaced this week. They have framed up the stairs, and concrete pours in those stairs will be done in the coming weeks. And today we have an action item for the financing of this project, and Courtney from Dorsey Whitney is here to walk us through that resolution when the time comes. I'm going to skip going over item 2 on the director's report, which is our jurisdictional expansion, because it is an action item and we will have an extensive presentation on it. We don't need to talk about it here. Our staffing update, as you all know, the board approved in our budget to move our 3/4-time admin 1 to a full-time admin 1 at the beginning of fiscal year 26. Our admin 1 has started her full-time work now, and it's been very helpful in our office. We are also very excited to have our new admin 3, Emily, here with us. She is running the meeting today and will be our board meeting person from now on. Our parking service manager recruitment wrapped up. We reviewed all of our applications and selected 7 candidates to interview this Thursday to replace our business manager who's retiring this year. We expect that our new manager will start on October 20th and have a full month of training with our existing manager before she leaves. And then finally, we have been revising our training program for our officers. We've had a lot of turnover with our parking enforcement officers, and so we've been doing research into how to help our parking enforcement officers feel more comfortable and confident in their roles so that we can retain those employees. So we've listed 4 different trainings that we will be offering to all of our enforcement officers now, and we are also pretty excited about a training in November. We're partnering with the city of Bozeman to offer a parking enforcement professional training in the month of November. For our maintenance update, we have received our drafts of our conditions assessments and our maintenance plans for our parking structures from Martin & Martin. We expect those to be finalized by the end of this month. We also have Martin & Martin back here this week doing an assessment of all of our surface lots, and they will provide similar documents, conditions assessments, and maintenance plans for those lots after their visit this week. Also in our budget this year, we had approved the fixed LPR and the new permit management system. We have an RFP drafted for that updated system that we expect to be posted by the end of this week. We have had that reviewed by our IT department because it is a software upgrade that comes with that hardware upgrade. We had it reviewed by our finance department and our city attorneys, and then also the director of parking for the University of Montana. And so we're just making a few changes on that so that we can finalize it and get it posted this week. We hope to select a vendor by the end of October. We have an ordinance amendment that's going to be going before committee tomorrow for our accessible parking fines. So this legislative session, House Bill 38 passed, which amends the fines for accessible parking violations and adds a fine escalation. So accessible parking violations have been $100 each since the 90s. The state has approved an escalation that starts at $150 and tops off at $500 for any accessible parking violation. Our city attorneys drafted an update to our ordinance to reflect that change. However, historically, the Parking Commission has followed what the state sets for those fines. So starting on October 1st, we will have adopted that fine structure for escalating parking fines. Our union negotiations are finalized. We used an interest-based bargaining approach this year, and it went really well. And we are comfortable with the new bargaining agreement. We have signed on to a 4-year agreement with a 2-year wage opener. And we increased the wages for our enforcement and our maintenance team in an effort to help with that staffing retention. We're getting through it. We didn't get to meet last month, so we just have a lot of items on the director's report here. All right, Riverside lot development. This is the area that we call our west front lot. It's that little triangle that's west of Orange Street. The Parking Commission doesn't own that lot, but we have managed that lot for the city as a parking area while they've waited to sell it for it to be developed. The city has entered into an agreement with Averill Hospitality Group to develop a hotel conference center in that parcel. They expect that they will close on that sale by the end of the year. So we will continue to manage parking as we have been managing parking in that lot through the end of the year at least. We've also been in touch with Averill Group and offered to continue to manage it on their behalf while they wait to start construction while they're in the design phase. And we don't have an answer on that yet, but we have been communicating with our leaseholders to ensure that they know what's coming and that there could be a potential change to their lease arrangement. Next, we have the Northside pedestrian ramp parking lot. So the city reached out to me a couple of months ago to talk about a parking lot that they own that is on the downtown side of that pedestrian bridge that comes over from the north side. They had an existing agreement with Partnership Health, and when Partnership reached out to them to renew that agreement, they asked the Parking Commission if we would instead like to be the ones that manage that parking lot because it's a city-owned parking lot. And so we have been working with the city attorney to draft a management agreement for management of that parking lot on behalf of the city. There were a couple of things that they needed to work through because it is outside of our jurisdiction currently, and we would have to have an approved agreement by our board that would then go to council. Council gets the final say in whether or not the city can enter into that management contract with the Parking Commission for a lot that's outside of our jurisdiction. And so that is something that's in the works right now. We had a draft agreement and then learned new information about council approval. So we've taken the draft back to our city attorney and they're reworking the agreement. We should be able to present it to you all in October. And then finally, I wanted to talk to you about a management change. So as you all know, we have been collecting utilization data in our unmanaged parking areas since October, since we started doing our utilization data collection in the HIP strip. The Parking Commission jurisdiction includes a section of spaces where we charge for parking and we have leases established and different permit programs, but we also have sections that we just enforce for safety violations that we don't have management strategies in place for. One area that is unmanaged but is within our jurisdiction is Levasseur Street, the end of Clay Street, and a little section of Kiwanis over on the way to the park. In collecting utilization data there, we have found that it's almost 100% full all of the time. Our metric for qualifying for management is 85% utilized most of the time, so it definitely exceeds that threshold. We have also heard from city councilors and a couple of the neighbors in the area concerns around being able to park around their properties with a new development going in at the end of Levasseur Street. So we have planned to start managing that parking area, to add management to that parking area. And it will look like this. That's a really small image on the screen. Let me see if I can make it any bigger. Just a little. Okay, so we will be adding leased parking on Levasseur Street at a cost of $39 per month. That's the area that's highlighted in purple. And here on my director's report, it says there are 11 spaces, but there are actually 11 spaces on one side of the street and 5 on the other. So it will be 16 parking spaces. We see the need to support the residents on Levasseur Street during construction and into the future. Leases on Levasseur will be restricted to residents of the Levasseur Street neighborhood and will require a piece of mail that shows residency. Residents will be notified of the upcoming change after this board meeting with a flyer that will be placed on their doors, and they will be given an opportunity to secure their lease prior to the start of lease parking on October 1st. Next, we will be extending the leased parking on Clay Street to the east side of the street. So this is what's highlighted in yellow here. All of Clay Street on the west side is currently leased parking. And that little section of Clay Street at the bottom is unmanaged. We have a wait list on Clay Street that includes 79 people, and we are oversold on Clay Street by 15%. We know that we will be able to fill those lease spaces when we start managing those leases, and our plan is to reach out to people that are on that wait list first, letting them know that new spaces are available and that their lease area extends over onto the east side of the street now. And then finally, we also recognize that a lot of the cars that are parked over here are people who live and work downtown who have found a free parking space. So we recognize a need to support employees and residents in the downtown, which is what we have our long-term parking program for. That's the parking that we offer to residents and employees for $2 a day. And so the green area on Kiwanis will be changed into a long-term parking area. And anyone with a long-term parking access code will be able to park in those spaces for $2 a day. As this is a management change and we don't do these things frequently, we will be checking in, we will be tracking the metrics in this area to make sure that it is serving the needs that we have seen, and we will follow up with the board at our January meeting after we've had a full 3 months of management in this area to let you know how those management strategies are working. And that is it for my director's report.
Thank you, Jodi. Any questions for Jodi? Go ahead.
Just one, I think, this time. And it's specific to the Levasseur Street leases. I have some concern with those being designated for residents of that particular street, since it is a public piece of land, and I don't believe that we should be only leasing to those. So with your metrics that you present to us in 3 months, I believe you said, I would be interested in knowing what the waiting list on Clay Street looks like after you make those changes, and how many inquiries you've received from folks who do not live in that area to utilize those spaces, just to make sure that we are just being conscious of all users of the area and not designated spaces to homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on to our action items. Jodi, will you introduce jurisdiction expansion?
Okay, I'm going to share a different screen, so give me just one moment. Okay. These are our action items for today. We are starting with our hip strip expansion. So I know that we have been working on this since 2023, but because today is the day to actually approve the resolution to expand into the hip strip, we are going to go over all of the details for the public benefit, and also as reminders to the board of all the things that we've done and the metrics that we've been using. So this is an engagement timeline that we have for the hip strip expansion. We started looking at the hip strip as an area for expansion back in 2023 during our parking study with Walker Consultants. The initial engagement included an advisory committee, a technical advisory committee, an inventory study, and an initial utilization data collection, 3 in-person listening events, and an engage page survey. After that spring kickoff of engagement, we continued to work with our technical advisory team and our advisory committee throughout the year toward the creation of our comprehensive parking plan. The draft plan was provided to MPC early in 2024, and we took that opportunity to do another round of community engagement. We posted the draft plan on our Engage page, and we worked with our advisory committees and attended neighborhood council events to gather feedback on the draft plan. In June of 2024, you all adopted the parking plan, which included a recommendation for near-term and future expansions of the Parking Commission jurisdiction. The recommendation included the hip strip as the first area to study for expansion, as well as what criteria should be met for expansion to make sense. I'll cover those criteria in a couple of slides. Between June and October of 2024, we worked on developing the mapping tools that we would use to collect the utilization data in the HIP strip, as well as posting information for the public to interact with. We started collecting our utilization in the month of October 2024. After 5 months of data collection, we determined that the area does meet the criteria for expansion, so we took the data back out to the neighborhood councils in March of 2025. We shared the map and our plan to expand with the University Neighborhood Council, the Heart of Missoula Council, and the Riverfront Neighborhood Council. We also shared with Mountain Lion, the University of Montana Parking Director, the Missoula Downtown Association Board of Directors, the Downtown Advocacy Committee, the North Riverside Parks and Trails Committee, the Bike Ped Board, and the Missoula in Motion. Many of these organizations had members on our advisory committees during the initial study, and we felt it was important to inform them of how the plan was being used and progressing. I'll highlight that June engagement. Oh, no, I won't. If today you all approve the resolution for council to expand our jurisdictional boundaries into the HIP strip, we will have some further public engagement throughout the month of October to include meetings with some of the key stakeholders that we've met over there to refine our plans for management once the jurisdiction is expanded. Then we will take the resolution to City Council in mid-November for final approval. The map shown here has our current jurisdiction in pink, and the study area for HIP strip expansion is outlined in teal. We collected utilization in this area starting in October of 2024, and I will show you how we use that utilization later in this presentation. The intent of showing you this map is to ground us in the area that we are discussing. I have also brought this large version that will remain here beside me throughout this presentation for reference. As you can see, our existing jurisdiction includes the Central Business District, which is this bubble north of the river, and then the residential parking permit area, which is around the University of Montana down here. So our study area included what's in blue here, this little square, which does not currently have any management established. It's right behind the Hellgate High School, and it's not a part of the residential parking permit area. It was included in our study because whether we expand into the HIP strip or not, we recognize that there is a need to address the competing interests in that area of residents, high school students, and high school staff. We are aware that management of that little square would shift demand patterns, and expansion into the larger area could allow us to manage that shift proactively. This is an overview of the metrics that we used, or the criteria that we used to establish that there is a need for parking management in the HIP strip area. We look at contiguity with our existing jurisdictional boundaries. We look at occupancy exceeding 75% during a typical weekday or weekend. We look at current and future redevelopment that would result in increased density, benefits of management and the ability to offset those costs, and then whether or not managed parking will achieve the benefit of distributing parking demand. So we're going to dive into that criteria for the HIP strip specifically. First, we looked at if the area is contiguous with the MPC jurisdiction. It is, as you can see on our map. The extended area would actually connect the two existing jurisdictional boundaries that we have. And the second criteria for contiguity is whether or not the area would have the effect of streamlining and simplifying our boundary. Again, the answer for the HIP strip is yes. Currently, our enforcement officers drive through this area going between the two separate parts of our jurisdiction, and expansion would simplify that boundary. Our next criteria is occupancy or utilization. We kind of use those terms interchangeably. So as you know, we've been collecting this occupancy data since October of 2024. I included one map here of some fall data from October of 2024. This is when high school is in session. And then I included 1 month of summer occupancy data here, which is when school is out of session. Hellgate High School is what I'm referring to. The 75% criteria is met throughout the year. It does shift slightly during the school year, as you can see here. The high occupancy blocks are highlighted in red. And in both cases and throughout the year, they extend for several blocks within the area we're looking to expand to. Here's a very wordy slide. This is some sub-criteria that we look at when we see that the 75% occupancy is met. So we look at whether or not the high occupancy is a result of spillover parking from user groups not directly associated with the land use adjacent to that respective block base. What we see and what we heard in our public engagement is that there is spillover into the residential area around the high school and in front of the businesses on 6th and 5th off of Higgins. We also see and heard that there is spillover from the Central Business District employees, specifically on 3rd Street, right over the Bear Tracks Bridge. The second criteria we look at is, do multiple user groups compete for the parking resources on a regular basis? We do see a competition for those resources in the Hip Strip area. We heard several concerns from residents that people visiting the businesses in the Hip Strip take all of the parking in front of their homes, particularly in the evening. We also heard from both Hellgate High School students, businesses, and residents that students park wherever they can. I want to point out here that I'm sharing this anecdotal data, but I'm not trying to state whether those concerns are good or bad. I just want to give you an idea of what we heard from the community when we did our engagement. Our next criteria is whether or not managed parking would increase on-street parking turnover in commercial-oriented areas, which is one of the goals of parking management. We do see that parking management is a way to increase on-street parking turnover. There are tools that we use in the Central Business District, which include charging for parking and enforcing time-limited parking areas, which both work to increase that vehicle turnover. And then finally, managed parking is a way to increase chances that residents can access on-street parking near their properties. Permit programs coupled with time-limited parking are used in the residential parking permit area to help in this way. One concern we heard from residents, in addition to the concern about high school parking demand, is that construction and reconstruction parking near their homes takes parking access away for months and sometimes years at a time. In areas where we manage parking, the MPC helps contractors to right-size their parking footprint and work to ensure that neighbors have access to parking near their homes during construction projects. This is just one example of how residents can get a better chance to park near their properties. These are our final three criteria. So we look at current or future development projects resulting in or likely to result in increased density. Hip Strip area does meet this criteria or meet this concern. As we know from the adopted land use plan, the Hip Strip area will be zoned to match downtown zoning, which includes no parking minimums. We expect that zoning to allow for more developments and changes in the area. There is one known potential redevelopment project within this study area. It is at the corner of Myrtle and 4th Street. We expect the development there to increase density in the area and to increase the demand for those on-street parking resources. Next, we look at if the benefits of managed or paid parking would reasonably or adequately offset the costs to justify the expense and effort required to implement and conduct enforcement. Yes, the MPC currently has the staffing capacity, equipment, and budget to extend management into the area circled in yellow here. And then our final criteria is it feasible or likely that the managed parking would achieve a benefit in terms of more effectively and efficiently allocating and distributing parking demand and help to increase the chances that parking is used by or available to those that need it the most. And that is the whole goal of a parking management program. So yes, the Hip Strip does meet that criteria. Okay. So this is our recommended motion slide. As a reminder, our parking plan recommended that we study the area highlighted in teal to determine if it met the criteria for jurisdictional expansion using those criteria that we just outlined. We do find that the hip strip area meets those criteria. So our next step is for the board to approve a resolution to extend the parking commission jurisdiction into the hip strip as shown here. Once the board approves, we still do need to take that resolution to city council. They ultimately decide our jurisdictional boundaries. Do we have any questions? Mike?
Yes, Mike,
May I make the motion?
please.
I would like to motion to approve the resolution expanding the parking commission jurisdiction to include the hip strip.
I will second that motion.
Thank you. I was just confirming. Thank you for using the recommended motion. The motion is in order and has been seconded. Discussion by commission. Yes.
Jodi, I think you've laid out a great case for the rationale behind expanding the jurisdiction, maybe as you've shown it. Can you speak to why it wouldn't go one block further, or was there data to suggest that that is the right boundary?
So what we used to determine what area we should study was the parking plan that was adopted in June. And so the consultant's recommendation was this, this limited area.
Other questions or comments? Would you outline again what additional work you want to put in place between now and the referral to council?
Yes, throughout our engagement, we were able to meet with what I'm going to call key stakeholders in the hip strip area, some business owners, some residents over there. And we will be working with them through some additional public engagement to determine, to refine our management strategies that we will be recommending once the jurisdiction expansion happens. And that will take probably through the end of October to do that additional public engagement.
As a for instance, what questions don't you have an answer to now?
I think what we need to determine is the best way to manage what is currently set up as 2-hour time-limited parking in the area. There are signs throughout the hip strip that say 2-hour time-limited parking, and they are in some residential spaces, they're in some commercial spaces. I can't determine why they were placed in the places that they have been placed. And so we would like to work with the business owners in those areas and the residents in those other areas to determine if that's the best management strategy for those spots, or if an extension of the residential parking permit program would make more sense in certain areas, or if metered parking would make more sense in certain areas.
And so you gathered that information and the referrals made to council. What is the likely or probable timeline between then and then implementing any results that you might find?
So if all things go smoothly and council approves the resolution to expand the area, we would look at starting management early in 2026, so in around January of 2026.
So this is a bit of a colloquial question, but it doesn't necessarily mean that meters are going to appear on Higgins January 1st.
Correct. That is not what it means. We would be looking at the signage, for example, in those 2-hour zones we would start enforcing safety violations throughout the area. We would start enforcing existing signage, so 2-hour signage and no parking signs and other existing signs. And we would monitor the impacts of that enforcement to see the effect of the management strategies that were in place, and then to make plans kind of similar to what we're doing in Levasseur, that are a reaction to what we're actually seeing.
And so after today, if we approve this resolution, we won't have another decision come before us as a commission before it's whatever it might be implemented.
Right, not to the board. You can manage, you would have decisions around like our operation and policy making if you determined that we needed to collect more utilization before making management changes, or if you wanted to adjust the KPIs that we use to establish management strategies. But there would be no further decisions for the hip strip expansion.
Any other questions or comments? I'll now open the public hearing for this resolution. If you would like to speak on this seconded motion before the commission? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Haven't any other comment by commission, I'll ask for a roll call vote. I'm sorry, yes, thank you, Tiffany. Is there anybody, any potential commenter watching our meeting on Teams online?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hi, I just want to say I support that motion to approve this measure. Cars and free parking are not what make the hip strip great. It's the people who are walking into businesses and, make just around the area. So I would rather there not be a ton of subsidized free parking. So I support the commission's work on this. Thank you.
thank you. And if you've already hung up, I understand, but would you introduce yourself for the record?
Oh, yes, Lindsay Nugent. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next commenter, if any, please introduce yourself. Okay, thanks again. Last call, any other questions or comments? All right. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
J.R. Casillas,
Approve.
Mike Steinberg,
Approved.
Peter Walker Keller,
Approved.
Tiffany Brander,
Approve?
Joe Easton,
Approve. Thank you. We'll move on to the most exciting part of our meeting, our bond issuance. Jodi, will you introduce this question?
Yes, the Parking Commission has been working on repairing our Bank Street structure since June. And we went through a bidding process for the financing of that construction and settled on First Security Bank as the financial institution that we will use for that construction project. We have Courtney Ellis here from Dorsey and Whitney to give us an overview of that resolution and to answer any questions that we might have. We also have Steve from Baker Tilly to talk through any of the numbers if that's required. And I will turn it over to Courtney.
Good afternoon,
Welcome.
everyone. Can you hear me?
Oh, you're right. Thank you.
All right. Can you hear me now? All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here today, and thank you, Board Chair, for acknowledging that this is the most exciting part of the meeting. So you have before you, and you had in your packets, a resolution relating to the issuance of $2,906,000 in principal amount of Parking Facilities Revenue Bond Series 2025. So as you all know, the Parking Commission has bonds currently outstanding. It's Series 2014 bonds. Those bonds were issued pursuant to what we call the original bond resolution. And so the original bond resolution in a revenue bond structure sets forth most of the meat, so that resolution sets forth the covenants, it creates the funds structure and the funds flow, and it includes conditions for issuing additional parity bonds that would have a parity lien on net revenues with the 2014 bonds. So this resolution is really quite simple, short, straightforward. It relates solely to the issuance of the 2025 bond on a parity with the 2014 bond. It sets out the particular terms and conditions of the Series 2025 bond, including the principal amount of the bond, the interest rate, which is 5.06% per annum. It provides for a 20-year repayment term with optional redemption at any time, in full or in part, without premium. This resolution further authorizes and directs the director and the board chair to execute and deliver the bond and related closing documents. So this would be the final board action in terms of approving this financing. Please let me know if you have any questions on any of that.
Will you explain what a parity lien means?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So a parity lien means that the bonds are on a parity with one another. They are secured by the net revenues on an equal and rateable basis. They both would have an equal claim to net revenues in the revenue bond account.
Put another way, if we had a lean year and we had less money available to us than we could pay our bonds, we would negotiate an equal amount or a similar amount between bond holders, not necessarily pay one first or one second.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. So you would pay them you would use the funds that you had available to pay bonds on a pro rata basis based on the principal and interest that was due at that point. Maybe worth noting, both series of bonds are also secured by a debt service reserve account. And so you have an amount therein that would also be allocated, between those two series on a pro rata basis.
Any questions for Courtney? Okay. How many respondents or bidders did we get? We got this packet information
Yeah, I
a
gave
while
you
ago,
that.
but for our benefit and for the public.
Yeah, Steve Sharp, Picatilly. So we received 3 separate proposals to purchase the bonds. And actually one of those provided 2 different options. So generally we look to receive at least 3. We view that as sort of a threshold for a level of competition. So we're happy to see that.
And what was the spread between the proposals?
I actually have that. First Security Bank was, I would say, somewhat obvious of a choice from our interest rate perspective. The sort of runner-up, I believe, was roughly in the neighborhood of 0.4% higher. Stack the paper here. So looking at First Security Bank, of course, Courtney referenced that was 5.06%. And then the second, I would suppose the second lowest interest rate bidder was at 5.8%. So a little higher than that 40 I mentioned. And then the respondent that provided 2 options. One was, or sort of both of those were considered variable rate. They would reset every 5 years or 10 years. So that was kind of the 2 options. Those were in the high 6%, mid to high 6% range.
Quite a wide spread. Questions or comments about the conditions of the bond, the resolution, our obligation? Does the money come in hundreds or in singles? All right, open to the floor to a potential motion. Go ahead, JR.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution relating to the $2,906,000 parking facilities revenue bond, Series 2025, and authorizing the issuance and fixing of the terms and conditions thereof.
Motion is in order
I'll second the motion.
and seconded by Peter. Any other questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from our public? Any questions or comments from our online attendants? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a roll call vote.
Mike Steinberg,
I approve.
Peter Walker Keller,
Approve.
Tiffany Brander,
Approve.
Joe Easton,
Approve.
J.R. Casillas,
Approve.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any new business or non-action items to discuss? Anything anyone would like to bring forward? October 14th is our next meeting. Any concerns or questions about that next meeting from any of you? Okay, we have one. We're down one.
I'll be there remotely.
Remotely. Okay. These were two important decisions in front of the board, and especially with the expansion. It was a long time coming. So this is a very mild finger wag to the four of you. If you feel like you have visibility into the next month's meeting, it helps Jodi and I to plan and or move decisions around if you can. Remote is second best to being here in person, but it is still best for your participation. The closer we get to the meeting day, is more difficult for us to move around decisions and discussions that the board needs to participate in. So as you get back to your desks and October 14th doesn't look right, please let Jodi know and we can move from there. Any other questions or comments for the good of the order? I will adjourn the meeting. It is 1:04.